Wake the up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
The year is 2019. You and your friends are crowded on a couch watching E3. A cinematic trailer for the next big ol' RPG from CD Projekt Red just closed with a peek at Johnny Silverhand, who's motion captured and voiced by Hollywood darling Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves then comes on stage and teases a release date of April 2020.
The release date. Yeah. All right.
It did not come out in April 2020. After a couple delays, it launches in December, and I, like most, had some words for Cyberpunk on launch day.
You done fucked it up!
In between the plethora of visual glitches and missing features promised way back when, it was near impossible to see past any of it to enjoy the game itself. I mean, how could you? Overnight, CDPR went from one of the most well-respected and popular video game developers to one of the most resented and despised in the industry. Even Sony, infamous for their strict refund policy, offered blanket refunds to anyone who bought the game, and even had it removed from the store entirely for months after release. If you play video games at all, you probably remember all of this pretty vividly. I mean, this was an event. And it was entirely their fault that this happened. I remember during this time I'd see comments and posts about how the hype was too high and gamers should have never had such insane expectations. Except CDPR did shit like this for years before the release.
We've greatly enhanced our crowd and community systems to create the most believable city in any open-world game to date.
But time's flown by since, probably more likely to do with the worldwide pandemic that took place, but for the sake of this topic, I'm going to say it solely stemmed from the disappointment gamers faced in 2020. After several red lettering on yellow background tweets from CDPR, a myriad of patches and updates, and a standalone expansion announcement, it's suddenly 3 years later. Very suddenly. Cyberpunk isn't what it was before, but it's still something very different from what it was promised to be. I see a lot of clickbait titles now talking about how Cyberpunk is a hidden gem or an underrated masterpiece. Buddy, Keanu Reeves is the secondary main character in this AAA video game. It's like saying James Bond or Mission Impossible are indie darlings that don't get enough recognition. As far as the game itself goes, I can only offer my perspective as someone who's played and completed the game on launch and recently completed again like 2 weeks ago. That disappointment can't be taken back, but I can say now, withstanding flaws and all, I think I love this game now. I can confidently say that without the glaring hitches and crashes every hour, a lot more of this game is able to be seen and played properly. It's not a masterpiece or a hidden gem, but it is finally a CDPR game, or at least I think so. Its gameplay is fun, and it's a lot more agile than I remember it being. Night City is the ultimate Blade Runner-esque atmosphere to play around in, or at least is most of the time. The AI is still pretty single-brain-celled, and I'd say that's one of the most enduring and critical flaws, but if you're looking for someone to tell you if it's worth playing now, I'd say it is. But I definitely look more into that beyond this video because I'm just here to tell you how Cyberpunk 2077 is a ghost story. I don't think it's controversial to say possession is a pretty agreed upon bad thing, right? It's the focus of a lot of horror movies, specifically the ghostly ones or the demonic ones. Being possessed can mean a lot of different things, but at the front of most portrayals, it's a complete loss of control over your body, your shell, your temple, or what have you. If you want to dive a bit deeper, you could say it goes beyond that. What really makes it scary is being aware or conscious while your spectral tapeworm does as it pleases in the driver's seat. I'd say it's also an intimate thing, not really in the fun way, but yeah, it's your body. You can recall every blemish and flaw in your own skin. It's a machine you've used your whole life, and you know how to operate it better than anyone. And now it's being shared by someone or something, and it likely won't care for its host's well-being as much as you do. But also, it can be a little wacky. You can get a little fun with it. It's like a roommate, kind of. Alright, so back up a bit. October 2015. The Witcher 3 gets its first expansion pack, Heart of Stone. Now, I played this game a lot. Like too many times, probably. but only noticed on my most recent playthrough that a specific part of this expansion is a sort of prototype to the Johnny Silverhand dynamic in Cyberpunk 2077. The section I'm talking about specifically involves summoning a ghost and taking him out of his crypt to show them the time of his life. There's no option to give any ghost sloppy toppy, so it ends like this instead.
I've an idea.
Oh no, not gonna happen.
Oh yes. Yes, it is.
We're treated to some delightful ghostly possession pranks. Geralt, who's normally matter-of-fact and to the point, suddenly poeticizes to Shani with his hands on his hips.
Yes, as soon as I laid eyes on you, promise to stay and stroke my chin, and I shall spend the rest of eternity in a hound's body.
You better get the best.
We're having a great time. Soon after this, the ghost steps out of Geralt for a moment. It's here we learn that only Geralt can see and speak to Vlodimir, resulting in scenes like these.
Sorry about that, Shani. That wasn't me.
So who was it?
Me.
Shut up.
I didn't say anything.
Sorry, wasn't talking to you.
Huh.
Who to then?
This is getting familiar.
Yeah, definitely don't like being possessed.
Beforehand, I'd always just fast travel to the next waypoint after this part of the quest, but I decided this time to just walk there. When doing this, Vlodimir will appear and reminisce on old landmarks, make comments, and generally just talk to Geralt in the open world.
Those signs. I'd like to try one.
What signs?
Your Witcher signs. Never done it. Could be interesting.
Rather not waste any time.
Till the stroke of midnight. What I would rather is what matters. I remember that mill. Whenever Olgierd and I got up to mischief, we'd hide out in there. Once, we snuck off with some moonshine. Old cocksucker Yaramir caught us. Those were the days.
Brewed in our teething years.
The rest of this quest is kind of like Wedding Crashers if Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn shared a body. Vladimir's over-the-top personality is filtered through Geralt's whispery Batman-esque demeanor. It's cute and it's funny, but it gets strange now and again. He's also very horny.
Now extend your supple leg and let me slide it in. Let it on.
Do I know you?
That's the crux of it. We've not met. I've had to endure half a lifetime without you. Hear that, Shani? My betrothed. Know what that means?
No. What?
It means we should act as befits the betrothed.
But at the end of the day, yeah, we knew it wasn't going to be permanent. It's an entire storytelling and character structure that would be impossible to adapt to the rest of the game, and so it ends as most expected.
Stop! I beg you! Stop!
Get ye hence, or I'll take you with me, and your mouldy crypt will look like paradise in comparison. The choice is yours.
Jesus.
But this is cool, right? It's a unique concept, especially in an open world game, to have this dynamic with another character. And listen, I know CDPR isn't the first to do it. In fact, earlier that same year, Rocksteady actually did it as well, but that's a whole other thing. But to have this dynamic along with dialogue options, branching paths, decision-making that could affect this character and the way they feel about you. What would it be like to resent someone you literally can never get away from? Or maybe it's more complicated than that. Heart of Stone let us play with that idea for about an hour in the quest, and it's great. But surely this idea is too much to seek in a whole experience, right? Like, that'd be a tall order. It's one thing to have this ghost schmuck appear, possess you, and do whatever this is. But that'd be unrealistic in a 70-hour video game. Right?
Like when you bang some chick and then her sister later, same night. And it turns out they're both sisters of God.
That's Cyberpunk shtick, essentially, story-wise at least. And yeah, sure, I know technically Johnny isn't a ghost as one would be in The Witcher, but like, he may as well be. In one world, a ghost is summoned with goat blood and sermons, and in the other, a psyche is digitally downloaded onto a chip to consciously suffer eternally in a black void of code. I mean, what's the difference at the end of the day?
Not the brightest bulb on stage, are you?
Alright, so we've got a crude, demanding, and irritating man in our heads. Who doesn't? It's essentially Vlodimir dialed up to 11. I remember playing this before and being surprised at in 2020, But this playthrough really highlights just how much Keanu Reeves is actually in this game. Look at most other celebrity cameos in video games, especially those on the same tier as Reeves. You get things like MGS5. Don't get me wrong, I love Phantom Pain, but this guy doesn't fucking speak. We meet Johnny with this very good flashback to... Oh, hey, it's 2023.
Hey.
Oh, no. Like, hey.
Tonight, I'm here to say goodbye to all of you. Enemy contact! I'm engaging! Lay it on him!
Oh, that's good stuff. This ends with Saburo digitizing Johnny's consciousness onto the chip V just jammed into their head. He's essentially just been existing primordially in a hellhole of code, but we'll get to the existential dread and horror stuff later. V wakes up and gets smacked around by Neo for a while.
Some iron in your mouth and pull the trigger.
Over time it might soften, depending on your choices. I was really struck by how often and naturally he appears in this game world. Sometimes it's small quirks like these.
Johnny, pretty sure they turned your great spot into a slurp shop.
Mindless fucking consumerism wins the day again.
Sometimes he'll appear to interject during quest lines. He even comes out during investigations.
Vapors from the room upstairs.
Wait, is that... Neoamphetamine.
He'll comment on your relationships, your friendships. He challenges you on your politics and perspectives. At some point, Johnny becomes more than just a specter in your head. He becomes you, or you become him, or somewhere in between. And if things play out a certain way, I mean that literally. But for now, this just shows its head in more subtle ways, like your character suddenly craving cigarettes because Johnny was a heavy smoker.
Finally, something better than exhaust in the stench of the city. Don't tell me you don't feel it too.
They share all sensations, and if you want to overthink that, go for it, because I'm pretty sure everyone who played this probably did that same thing. He's grating, yeah, but he's also just endearing somehow. In his flashbacks, we see this tough guy who pushes everyone away, and it works too.
But I'm the only one with a vision. So unless you got a better one, like I said, go fuck yourself. I alone have the balls to stand up to Arasaka, and boy, that terrifies you. All of you.
Of course, Johnny S. Misunderstood by all Night City. That's it. That's the problem.
Nobody sticks around when he shouts vulgarities and cruel remarks, a tactic he tries on V. But when the person he's trying to scare off is literally never not in the same room as him, you start to see the guy's just a big softy. He's a scared little guy, and maybe this sibling, best friend, parasitical, digitized two-seater dynamic is exactly what he needs. It results in some truly sincere and great moments, one of my favorites being when you try to help him find his body. He finally lets the tough guy act drop, and you can really challenge him on his shitty attitude. You can tell him how he's abused your trust, and that if things are going to get better, he needs to grow up a bit, or maybe a lot.
No, Johnny, you fucked that up too. You used me. Lied to me. I can't trust you at all.
Is it too late to ask for a second chance?
It's almost jarring to see this guy.
And I'll kill anyone who gets in my way. You included. The fuck kind of joy toy are you supposed to be? Who you work for, start talking. I'll take control. I'll find a way. You hear me?
Sit down next to you and genuinely ask for a second chance at being a good friend to you. He actually wants to help you, and he even cares for you. I remember during launch, a lot of the criticism was directed at Keanu's performance. It's not that it was bad, but it didn't really match this, rogue rocker boy? Is that real? And yeah, I kinda get it, but something about that mismatch I think kinda solidifies the character. Being an asshole is a front, and feeling that disconnect to that persona I think just makes me like it more. It might be a cop-out, but fuck you, it's my video. It's a complicated relationship, but some of our strongest are exactly that. This psyche is digitally rewriting V's brain. It's killing them, draining them, and puts them on a few-week timeline of life left, which, The game doesn't really take seriously, but that's a whole can of worms on its own. You get locked in a room with a stranger, and when you're finally able to get out, you might not even want to leave.
Would you take a bullet for me?
I would. Yeah.
Once through Act 2, you'll get a side quest for Johnny specifically. This kicks off a whole chain of events, but it can basically boil down to, please V, help me fix my broken-ass busted life. You let him take over your body a couple times, he gets a little crazy, but that's to be expected.
Just got a little biz to take care of first.
You let him take his girlfriend from 50 years ago on a date. It's definitely weird, but you want it to be good for him anyway.
Have fun, you crazy kids.
Rogue is a different person from who she was in 2023, and Johnny isn't, or at least not yet. You can see Rogue knows that in how she talks to him. She's moved on and probably did a long time ago. It's sad, and it's compelling, and while I feel bad for Johnny, it just makes sense. Especially after seeing the way he treated people when he was alive.
Guess things did not go swimmingly.
Nope. Was gonna be a nice night at the drive-in.
Johnny also wants you to help him fix his friendship with Carrie, who was in Samurai with him. And by all evidence presented, Carrie was Johnny's best friend, or at least as close as someone could be. He treated him badly, which is like, yeah, that's a given. Not to minimize it, but I think by this point in the story, it's almost always the case that whoever knew Johnny also probably hated him more often than cared for him. I know I've used this word a lot, but again, things are just complicated. And as they should be. I mean, we're a psychotic mercenary with a talking dead man in our heads. We run around with a sword. We're not mentally well. If you want to get really weird with it, you can actually get romantic with Carrie. Suddenly this messy and unhealthy identity crisis just got a whole lot sexier. And also weirder. Anyways... Upon meeting Carrie, Johnny wants to take over and talk to him directly. This results in him playing some samurai tracks on Carrie's guitar. Now, I feel like any schmuck could probably find chords to this and just learn how to play the song. And the game kind of makes a point now and again that Johnny's guitar playing is so legendary and unable to be mimicked, but like, that's not really how guitar playing works. I'm not an expert on the subject, but I've learned a Johnny Cash song or two, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter, though, because this indicates to Carrie that Johnny is inside of this stranger's body, alive but not really, which is a stretch, but I kind of like it anyway.
All right. Johnny? Carrie?
Carrie's having a midlife crisis, essentially. He feels like he sold out, spoiler alert, he did, and now he feels like he doesn't have control over his music or his life. Johnny used to be someone who grounded him, reminded him of what their music was about and why they did it. Maybe not always in a good way. Actually, not maybe. Let's just say definitely not in a good way. To me, it kind of felt like a big brother, little brother dynamic, where the big brother wanted the little brother to stay in the dumps with him. And when he's not there to bully him or genuinely motivate him, Carrie ends up in a mansion with a golden gate, a tacky dining table, and one of the 4 erudites in Night City. And now that he succeeded, it just seems like he wishes he didn't. He wishes his big brother was there to keep him humble. It just goes to show that CDPR does not fuck around when it comes to quest and character writing. I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here, but I feel like it's relevant. Joseph Anderson has a great video on the gameplay loop of Fallout 4. One point he makes is that the quest writing feels like they had a room full of employees and all of them shouted one-sentence synopsises for side content. Can't be exactly proven, but it does add up if you start trying to guess what those sentences were.
A melodramatic actor is stuck on a tower of super mutants. You help repair a Chinese submarine so it can sail away. There's a ghoul kid in a fridge. There's a robot that can brew beer. Find a cat and send it home. Rescue some kid that ran off to become a raider. You pretend to be a crime-fighting superhero. And so on and so forth. I think you get the idea.
The reason I bring it up isn't to suddenly pivot into a Fallout 4 is bad video. In fact, I think the internet has enough of those already. It also probably has enough Cyberpunk videos, but I didn't get my turn, so here we are. I bring this up mostly to juxtapose it against this game's quest writing. None of these stories could be boiled down into a short sentence, at least without being overtly vague. And that's the core of it, man. It's why I fell in love with The Witcher 3, and it's what I was excited to find again in Cyberpunk, even if it's 3 years too late. These quests, I think, also highlight a lot of the best possession scenes in the game, and I think makes a great example of the wacky and fun dynamic of possession I brought up at the start. You play a reunion show as a ghost with all of his music ability after his death 50 years ago, while reconnecting and mending one of his most important friendships with Carrie. It's like if Patrick Wilson was possessed at the end of Insidious, but he was actually really chill with it and everyone likes it.
Why would you do that to me when you know how I feel about that? Why?
There's also a lot of great, wait, am I talking to V or Johnny here moments, and those are cute.
You want to hear anything? Johnny. Oh. He's gone, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, but he can still hear you.
Through Carrie and Rogue specifically, I think also highlights the blend of you, or V, and Johnny. You're truly becoming one person at this point. Johnny's friendships are your friendships now. Your concerns are his. It only took 2 acts and the longest side quest line in the game, but things are starting to get more symbiotic than parasitic by now. That essentially caps off all but the end of this game now, and it's pedal to the metal existential dread and melodrama from here. All aboard, baby. The train has left the station. Now, if you've done all this in your playthrough, you might be having the same feelings I do. Suddenly, this parasitic mind virus is a lot harder to want to get rid of, but this duality state of mind is coming to a close. V is all but a corpse at this point, and if you're close enough with Johnny, he genuinely wants to help you. I've used the word stranger to describe these two to each other, but I think it's clear by this point we're far from that. Might sound a bit heady here, but it's pretty captivating. The story has morphed from a sci-fi Blade Runner romp to a buddy cop drama with the voice in your head, to a sincere identity dilemma.
Need to stretch your noodle? Fine.
Just
not in this basement.
V, Christ, you're talking out loud.
And I love it. Like all close relationships in our lives, he's a part of us, and we're a part of him. It's not even about whether you like it or not at this point. The game keeps this somewhat vague because I assume they don't want to write your feelings for you, but one of the endings makes a point that Johnny is what's left of the old V. This plays out if you make a decision to side with Arasaka, and Johnny, despite what reads to me as sincere reservation, completely resents you for it. He tells you just before the point of separation that he is the version of you that mourns Jackie, who dies in Act 1, making a point that this isn't who V is anymore.
I'm the V who mourns our pal, Jackie. The V who's fucking livid at Brigitte. I'm the V with a heavy conscience.
I like this from a role-playing perspective because it indicates that our impact on V is what made them who they are now. Whoever they were before we got involved is gone. I mean, I also hate it because it makes me feel bad, but you get the point. The ending I got on this latest playthrough might be my favorite. It's within this same black void backdrop, but instead of shoving one person out of its body, it's a tug of war between who walks away.
Perfect. Because we're sticking to the plan. I'm going with all fuck knows where. You're keeping your body.
This bridge leads deeper into cyberspace. Cross it and permanently sever the connection with your body. The path to your body passes through that mortal well.
What I told you at the Pista Sophia, we stick to that. I'll go. You stay.
I wanted Johnny to take the body at this point. While walking into the unknown with Alt, Johnny is taunting you and trying to guilt you into turning around.
What? A little guilt creeps in and that's that? You give up?
Stop. Just stop.
Gonna just roll over instead of fighting for what's yours? Decommiss yourself because you're too fucking scared to say goodbye?
It's my decision. Let me make it.
You're loyal, I'll grant you that. But damn it, are you dense? Haven't changed a bit since we met.
I'm so damn tired, Johnny. I just want to start anew. Even if I don't know what that means. It better be good for you, too.
V, I'm just scared for you.
I'll see you around, Johnny.
This is exactly what he would do. It's powerful, and it's sad, and it's sincere. There's no way to resolve this where everyone wins. V's personhood and relationships are all forfeit if Johnny takes over, and that makes sense. Imagine telling your best friends and romantic partners, oh, I did take over their body, but they were definitely okay with it. Pan Am specifically sends a very sad and angry message in this ending, and while it makes my entire body ache, I absolutely love how it's delivered.
Here's a bit of advice for you, Johnny.
Enjoy your new lease on life, because it's not gonna last long. I'm serious. Believe me when I say I'm going to find you, you fucking psychopath! Wherever you're hiding. And when I do, I'm gonna rip V out of your head!
But what I think I really love about this ending is that it feels like the only one where the other person is actually remembered by who moves on. I think it's meant to be vague if V lives on, because that's the ending that could happen if someone didn't like Johnny or didn't want him to be remembered. But Johnny can only get V's body if the player wills it. If you do let him live on in your body, it goes like this. Johnny wakes up in an apartment in V's body now. It feels incredibly lonely here. The apartment itself is cold and shabby, everything is a lot quieter now, but what really isolates us is Johnny making comments on how he has to stop himself from talking to V.
Shit, gotta pack too. And I gotta stop talking to you, V. Oh, V.
On your way out, you meet with a kid at the end of the hall, and it's implied they've been friends for a bit now. He asks the kid for a ride, and on the way out, we witness his dad give him shit on the porch. I spent 70 or so hours committing several crimes against nature with cyberware and explosives and swords and guns, and at this point I'm mashing the mouse button to commit those same acts against this man, but that's not an option here. It's not very surprising our entire inventory is gone, but it is surprising Johnny doesn't actually want to hurt him. I could make a point about how many people we've killed or harmed at this point, but I do actually like the point Johnny makes about this instead.
Wanna try me? Go ahead.
Wish I could drop him myself. Wanna be strong like you.
You will be down the line. Though, sure hope you'll see he's not worth any skin off your knuckles.
How come?
Because you'll realize how weak he is. And it'll hurt.
It almost feels out of character to hear him talk through V's voice this way. He's not angry and he's not suppressing it either. He sounds relieved, albeit also pretty sad. Soon after this, Johnny makes a point that he doesn't care about the corpse anymore because he realized he didn't have to.
My dad says there's gonna be another corp war. Liable to jump at each other's throats any day now. Think it's true? Think there'll be another war?
Asking the wrong guy. Got no interest in the topic. Couldn't care less, to be honest. Know why?
Why?
'Cause I realized I don't have to.
The first time I heard this, I had mixed feelings on what he might mean by that. It initially felt like defeat or like he was giving up. It also feels very different from the Johnny we've known throughout this entire story. If there's one thing we know about Johnny Silverhand, it's that he fucking hates Arasaka.
V, I've declared war not because capitalism's a thorn in my side or out of nostalgia for an America gone by. This war's a people's war against a system that spiraled out of our control. It's a war against the fucking forces of entropy. Understand?
It also just kind of felt hopeless, and yeah, that might have been something I enjoyed a few years ago, but I guess things change. 3 years isn't exactly a transformative amount of time, but it's definitely not insignificant either. We've all been through a lot the last few years, personally and globally, so I think we could all use a happier and less nihilistic lens on things now and again. Don't worry, I'm not going to get all down and soft to you right at the end, or at least not this time, but I do see this differently now. I think what he means is that he was never going to beat Arasaka, and that's fine. It's just true. If you were never told by the game or by the memorial at Arasaka Tower, you'd never known the tower was bombed 50 years beforehand. All they did was build a bigger fucking tower. The war Johnny raged on Arasaka didn't just fail, it tore him and his friends to shreds. I mean, Alt is a fucking AI now, and all that Johnny got out of the bombing was being subjected to what could be described as the most horrifying thing you can do to another person in this world. I know I said I was going to get to the happy part of this, and yeah, I'm getting there. Even after all this, they also kinda unintentionally gave Johnny his best possible outcome. They could have just shot him and been done with it, but they wanted to do the evil scientist thing instead, and this is how that really ends for them. It took 50 years, but Johnny has a lifetime of rebellion behind him and a whole new lifetime ahead of him now. Not only that, but Arasaka also implodes from the inside during these events anyway, and realistically, that's the only way they could have ever been beaten. There's no happy ending to Arasaka, but there can be for Johnny, and that's how he beats them. And yeah, that's surprising, a Johnny Silverhand who wakes up with a new lease on life. He doesn't run to a stage, or to Rogue, or to Arasaka. He says goodbye to his closest friend and leaves the city for good. He's found his peace, and he's not going to throw it away this time.
Oh, V. Can't carry this around anymore, you know. Can't keep wallowing. Can't keep obsessing over what happened. Couldn't forget you anyway. I'm wearing your goddamn face. Thanks for... well, for everything. I'm wiser now, and I don't plan to waste it. So this is goodbye.
The ghost in this story doesn't win by possessing someone for their own gain. In fact, he misses its owner. And maybe also feels undeserving of what V had to lose for him to have what he does now. This ending is one about grief, for a friend you didn't only lose, but also one that took a bullet for you, made a genuine sacrifice for you. It's not a happy ending, but it feels warm anyway. The most compelling parts of a story are the ones that feel human. I think that's really what highlights the cyberpunk genre in general.
No, I didn't. Haven't forgotten a thing. Never will.
Cyberpunk worlds are filled with dehumanizing aspects, trading humanity for machinery, cybernetic implants, and artificial limbs. Humanity is hard to come by in these worlds. It's hard to come by in life, so take it where you can get it. Cyberpunk 2077 is a ghost story. Thank you so much for watching.
Said what you had to say.